In this video, I will teach you a number of words you must avoid in IELTS writing. But don't worry, I will give you replacement words for each word that I tell you to avoid. So, let's begin. Now, why should we avoid the following words? Well, one reason. They are all too informal. Now, when you're answering a writing task 2 question, remember this is academic writing. Therefore, all the words that you use should be formal. So, the way this video will work is that I will tell you the word to avoid, and then I will put it in an example sentence. Then we will just replace the word that we need to avoid with a more formal word. And these words will get you a higher mark. So, let's get straight into it. So the first term that we should avoid is to sum up. Now this is often used in the conclusion paragraph, but we don't need to be fancy here. We can just use the typical words to conclude or in conclusion. So here's an example. To sum up, it is clear to see that the advantages, such as traveling abroad, clearly outweigh the disadvantages. So here we would just use in conclusion or to conclude to replace the term to sum up. The next term to avoid is lots of or a lot of. This term just means many. For example, lots of studies show that. Here we would just replace lots of and just use a term such as several. So the sentence would start off as several studies show that, and then you can just carry on with your sentence. Now, the next term we should avoid is you or you are. So when they merge together, they become your. So, for example, you can clearly see that the results show. So this sentence would become results clearly show and then carry on. Or if you want to take it a bit higher, you can write it is evident and then just carry on. Now, the next term to avoid is a couple of. This is a very informal way to say many or several. So, for example, the sentence there are a couple of solutions to this problem will become there are several solutions to this problem, or there are many solutions to this problem. Now, the next set of words that we should avoid are everyday words. These are words that we typically use in conversations. So what I will do for these words is I will just list the words, and then on the screen I will write the term that you should be using. So the words to avoid are uni, that should become university, info, that should become information, phone, telephone we would write, and ASAP. ASAP is an acronym for as soon as possible. We should never really use acronyms in IELTS writing exam, except for when we refer to countries, for example, the USA. Now the next set of words that we should avoid are listing words. And these words are, the first one is so on and so forth. This sounds really fancy, but unfortunately it's informal. So let me give you an example sentence. They discussed many high school subjects such as maths, English, science, history, so on and so forth. Here, you don't need to replace the term, you can just completely ignore it. So the sentence would become, they discussed different high school subjects such as maths, science, English, and history. Okay? There you go, really straightforward. Now the second listing word to avoid is etc. Usually when people write it, they write etc and then you would see the 3 dots. We want to avoid that completely. Again, you don't need to replace it with something else. The same rule would apply as in the previous example. Now let's move on to the next set of words to avoid in IELTS writing, and they are idioms. The rule here is that we should avoid using idioms at all costs when it comes to academic writing. Not just in IELTS, but when it comes to your university essays and anything of that nature, we need to avoid idioms. So here are a few examples. Some of them you might not even know they are idioms because of how often we use it. The first one is, it can cost an arm and a leg. That just means it is expensive. So as opposed to writing the idiom, just write down clearly, it is expensive. Or if you want to step it up a bit, you can just write, it can cost a significant amount of money. Again, you don't need to be fancy or unique with your writing. Stick to the basics and you'll be absolutely fine. Another example of an idiom that we should be avoiding is, and this is a very common one, and that is at the end of the day. This is the term that is often used to summarize an essay or to start off a conclusion. We don't want to write down at the end of the day. You can just write to conclude or in conclusion or to summarize and then just carry on. On a side note, these are the best ways to start off your final paragraph. It goes straight to the point and it shows the examiner that you have full control of your writing. Now, the following set of words are very basic words. Now, you can use these words in IELTS writing, but they're so basic that you can replace them and straight away get a higher mark. Examples of very basic words are very. For example, computers are very expensive, or it is very important. You can just replace the word very with the word extremely. So computers are extremely expensive. Or an alternative approach is that you can just ignore the word completely. Just take it out. So computers are expensive. It's short, it's straight to the point. And if you use a variety of short and simple sentences, along with the complex sentences, that will show the examiner that you are using a range of different sentences. That again will boost your marks for IELTS writing. Now, the next basic word to avoid is to show. Now, this is a very easy word to replace. There are so many synonyms that you can replace it with. For example, to demonstrate, to display, or to illustrate. Now, that brings us to the next word, and that is bad. Now, this word is just way too basic. You should not be using this at all, but rather use words such as poor or negative. For example, a bad decision will become a poor decision. Now, the next basic word to avoid is big. Instead, you can replace this word with a number of words such as large or great. For example, a big amount of calories will become a large amount of calories or a great amount of calories. Now, that brings us to the end of this video, and if you benefited from this video, you might want to check out my free IELTS synonym course. It's a 10-lesson course on YouTube, and I will leave the link of the playlist somewhere here, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.